It's me again, a lonesome wanderer seeking for knowledge. Hi guys, welcome to another vid on my channel. It's been a while, but actually not a huge while like the last time. So I've been wanting to be a bit more consistent for the sake of being famous, of course, but just to do something productive and to do something that I enjoy myself. This time I've been thinking to tackle a bit of a different subject than in the videos before. There's just been one video in English, the other ones prior to that have all been in German, but more or less the theme has been linguistics and languages and to some extent cultures. And today I've been wanting to do something a bit different. I've been wanting to talk about morale and morality from a bit of a philosophical perspective. I'm not a philosopher myself. I am a linguistic student and I don't have any huge affiliations with philosophy apart from just being interested in it in general. So take whatever I say with a bit of a grain of salt. The source of morale has long been religion in the past, although nowadays this can be seen shifting to a more of an individual perspective on how your actions should be handled and how your actions should be motivated also. So my personal individual stance on this is, I think you could say maybe a bit harsh, maybe a bit rough, or maybe a bit edgy even, although I don't consider myself a really edgy person. But I've been thinking for a long time that humans tend to just do what benefits themselves, not in the way that they necessarily mean evil for others, but just that they want the best for themselves and to reach the highest possible quality of life. And with that coming, there's certain things that you might consider altruistic, so thinking about others prior than about yourself. But in a certain sense, altruism is just sometimes just egoism masked as altruism. I've been researching a bit for this video. I've found out that the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes, who is an empiricist and also I think mathematician, also shares this view with me, or I should probably say I share this view with him being the philosopher and me being the random guy in the video. What he said was that humans inherently are self-centered and rely on self-preservation, and this self-preservation sometimes may seem like it's true altruism, although in its core it's not really. But I don't want to talk about my own perspective, or for that matter the one of Thomas Hobbes, because that's not really what this should be about, I think, because as we all know, I don't know anything. If you take a look at morality, there's a few names who pop up, and I think the most important ones are the ones I should speak about now. But before we hit it off with the famous names, an interesting fact I think is, because I have more of a linguistics background, is that the word morale from morality comes from the Latin word mos and the stem mor, and this means something like custom or like cultural habit. The morale has shifted all over time. So an ancient Roman thinks different about certain issues in society than we think nowadays. So of course morale is changing. So I thought it was quite interesting that the word for morale comes from mos, moris, which means custom, which maybe not a lot of people are aware of, and I wasn't aware of it before. So I think the biggest name when we talk about morality is Immanuel Kant. He's one of the most famous philosophers of all time, and the German one, I might add, which is not that rare in philosophy, although he came from Königsberg, Eastern Sea. And Kant had some interesting views on morale. He thought that the only thing that really mattered is the goodwill, and that the goodwill is itself loose from the importance. The goodwill is the only thing that really matters, and the only importance is this goodwill, and not the goal, and also not the result of an action which you have. Because even if you act with bad intentions, the result can be good. And also if you act with good intentions, the result can be bad. So therefore, the goodwill itself is the only really thing that governs this, in his words, good morale. So the consequences are not really a criterion here. Therefore, Kant formulates the categorical imperative, which I have read down here in German. I might just read it out in German first. Handle nur nach derjenigen Maxime, durch die du zugleich wollen kannst, dass sie in einem allgemeines Gesetz umgewandelt werde. For those who don't know German, it means something along the lines of act upon someone or something like you wish that this certain action would be a general law. So for Kant, it was obvious that our mind couldn't grasp the true order of the nature or the true self of the world. We were somehow corrupted by our human ability to just perceive what we perceive with our eyes and our organs and our body, and that the brain applies a certain order to the world, which in return shapes how we perceive the world. That is a view that is also, I think, quite understandable. So, saying that with a limited capacity, how can you understand the infinite in some sense? But Kant believed that moral does not have anything to do with that. He believed that morality is based on reason and is therefore subjective. And this reason, he said, can be achieved by humans with just thinking. And the limitations of this mind, which I've spoken about now, do not prevent us from having a rational moral system. This moral system is, and this can be created through reason. For him, moral actions were not determined by empirical knowledge, but rational principles that can universally be applied, which in return brings us back to the categorical imperative. The next one is Albert Camus, a French/Algerian philosopher, which you might know as the absurdist guy. He had a bit of a different view on things. So for him, what mattered the most was the absurd, a term which he coined and describes the way in how you perceive the world and understand and also embrace the meaningless which surrounds you all the time. And this really abstract concept was what he called the absurd. So the absurd condition of the human or life in general was something that you had to embrace and also accept. And the rejection of nihilism is something that comes along with it. In case you don't know, nihilism is a worldview in which you also believe there is no meaning to anything, but at the same time, you don't have your own meaning, which you can create for yourself or for others, but you just have no meaning at all and nothing matters. That is not exactly what absurdism is about. So Camus believed that humans have a personal responsibility and also a solidarity which they carry out. So there was no authoritarian way of looking at morality. I think that is a thought that is quite modern if you look back to when Camus wrote this. The next philosopher is Friedrich Nietzsche, also a German one, and one of the most famous ones in general, and also, funnily, an philologist for, I think, Latin and Greek. Nietzsche had a perspective on morale that was a bit unusual, especially for the time. So Nietzsche thought that the church mostly coined or created this morale. For Nietzsche, slave morality was a revolt of the weak, and it emerged from the oppressed and weaker classes, and Nietzsche believed that they were unable to overpower the masters, and the oppressed people and their suffering, with all their weakness, became moral virtues. And they began to value traits like humility, weakness, kindness, empathy, which were useful for survival in a world dominated by stronger individuals. And on the contrast, this master morale has been the powerful and morality in terms of strength, power, and dominance. And in ancient times, individuals created their own values, which celebrated qualities like nobility, courage, and assertiveness. But important is that he embraced the Übermensch, or the superhuman in English, and that is an individual that has risen above those boundaries of the slave morale and have created their own morale according to strength, creativity, and self-mastery. The other ones I've just wanted to mention briefly are Aristotle, which has a virtue ethics. So for him, the most important essence of morale is virtue itself. John Stuart Mill has coined the term utilitarianism, which is just do what is more useful for you. Really pragmatic view, I think. Jean-Jacques Rousseau has used social contract as an explanation for how we came to have the morale we use. And Søren Kierkegaard is one of the most important opponent for existentialism, something that is a bit similar to absurdism from Albert Camus, which I've spoken about before, but not quite. There's some nuanced differences. I've just wanted to do something a bit different for now, and let's see if you like it, if you enjoy it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next vid.